All right, welcome back to Fresh Vinyl Live. Today we're doing nothing but model kit building, and joining us, a couple new faces. Burley Vang joining us for the first time out in California. We got. Oh no! I hear it echo again. You know what? I think maybe somebody's volume's too high. Maybe just lower the volume or something. I don't know. We got David Dopko from Seattle. John DeSantis out in Pennsylvania. John Bumpus, owner of Screonk. I think I screwed it up again. Jordan Chin down in New York, and Steve Sergioli out in Vegas. And I'm Rich Iso. Thank you for joining us. So, nothing but model kits. Okay, so what we're going to start off with is we're going to do a couple questions from us potential kit builders here, and we're going to go from there. David Dopko, Steve Sergioli, two well-renowned kit builders in our hobby. If you had asked me, I think a kit building, and I think it's you guys. Burley, I know you're coming up. You're doing your own thing right now. Just some stuff in the house, just some hobby stuff, whatever. So I know you got some good skills. I have no skills, so I'm here to learn. And that's what's up. Man, echo.
How is this happening again?
I don't know.
It's not the same problem as last time. I think we're just hearing each other talk. Because last time it was like a 5-minute loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
All right, so
I think we're good.
Well, let's just roll. Let's just roll with it. I'm going to start off. I'll just get the ball going first. I know we all have kits that we're potentially working on. I got something that I'm not really too fond of supporting, but it's a recast. And Steve, I know we were talking yesterday about recast just a little bit, but I have a recast of the Ghost Godzilla skeleton, the 54. My wife got it for Christmas, and she didn't really know all that much what she was looking at, but she got some help from my buddy Paul on picking it because he has one. It's really awesome. But to David and Steve, recasting, and for other potential kit builders out there that would recast, your thoughts, if any, on recast kits?
Well, I'll start off. I'm not a huge fan of recast kits as a whole, but it is, it takes money away from sculptors, and businesses that's their livelihood. So aside from that, I'll get off the soapbox and say they are good for practicing. They're inexpensive, and if you, I almost used a bad word, if you mess it up, it doesn't really matter because you can either just scrap it or whatever. But it's a good way to get those kinks out of model building and get a little confidence for yourself. So having said that, the problem with recast 2 is usually the instructions are non-existent if they're even in there, and the pieces, the flash, which is the excess resin or vinyl, usually is like not. There's more of it than there should be, so it's hard to fit the pieces together. So I don't know. I think the only good thing I can say about recasts is they are good to practice on, but I don't think it's a good idea to constantly, support people who are doing these recasts. But I don't know, Steve. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more, David. They are, they're good practice fodder, but I'd rather see folks go and get like a plastic styrene kit, which are a lot less expensive. I don't like supporting that side of it, and I've built a few for folks. And on the practical side, assuming everything David said is correct, and it is, it really discourages companies who, a lot of these resin kits, they're really small runs. So when they're looking at these small profit margins and small runs, Burley's getting into that now, so you know what I'm talking about. If you, honestly, if you're going to make, your own kits, and someone out there is going to bootleg an old kit, well, there goes a sale of yours. But the problem that I also have with this is if you've ever built like a lot of Sakai kits are recast, resin, which is the most popular material since it's inexpensive and easy to use at home, resin shrinks using a chemical reaction when it cures. And the more resin you have, the more chemical reaction you have, and the more it shrinks. So let's say you're building a Godzilla. The body's a big chunk of resin, and it's going to shrink more. The head's going to shrink less. The tail's going to shrink less. The hands are going to shrink even less. So what happens is nothing fits together right. The Sakai Big Wrap, we've all seen bootlegs of it, and I've seen some that just physically will not go together without 40 hours of resculpting, puttying, sanding, matching scales. So it gets to the point where, what are you really saving? You're going to get a lot better quality cast tracking down the original. So no, I'm just not a big fan overall for all those reasons.
No, you're right. You're right, because the proportions are off. Even if you can do the repairs like Steve said, which if you're a new modeler, I mean, it's going to be really frustrating, because for us to do that, it's hard to match the scales and to actually resculpt pieces that aren't right. But it's even if you do all that, like he said, it's never going to look right, because the head's going to be too big, the hands are going to be too big, and but I mean, the only thing that's good is the painting practice on them. That's something that you could would be easy to do, and like Rich got one for a gift. That's cool. And he's hopefully going to attempt to do that on his own, and it'll be a good practice kit. The only bootleg I ever put together was a Billiken Mummy kit, and it was vinyl, and it was pretty close to the original, because I had already built one of those too. Just the one hand that goes across just wouldn't fit right. It just wasn't the right. I mean, whoever molded it, it just was wrong. But yeah, recasts are really sort of not smiled upon in the modeling world. So Burley, since you're going to be creating your own kits, which is awesome, you're really not going to want someone to go like they said and try to get your kit and recast it if it becomes successful. So yeah. So we kind of don't dig recasts unless someone gives it to you and you want to use it as practice for painting.
Good to know. I can tell you just from looking at these pieces, just the leg and a foot, they don't butter up at all together, and that's kind of intimidating, because like, how am I supposed to make this support itself, under its own weight? Obviously, like when you got these little, hard to tell, but these little nubs right there, they're supposed to butter up and whatnot. Having seen Paul's, his looks beautiful, so I don't even know how. I think he bought his built, but
He did too. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
What kind of glue will you guys use to put that together?
Yeah.
Well, in that case, for what Rich is showing, that's a two-step assembly, because that's actually a great example right there. I would drill straight through the middle of that foot underneath and cut a steel or brass rod and insert it, say exact same diameter, and I use Crazy Glue liquid. I'm a big proponent of Crazy Glue liquid, and that'll stay up forever. But again, that's another skill that's learned. Don't have the drill on the. I use a Dremel. Don't have too high an RPM if you make a mistake, or you don't want to crack the resin. Those recasts usually use fairly cheap materials, and just the vibrations of the drill will crack it sometimes. But that one being basically a 90-degree planar joint, you could easily drill press that right through and use any number of metal support rod, and that's what you'd have to do, because regular glue will not support that.
So for a regular kit that's not a recast and it's not a super heavy kit, now I know, John, you're going to do the Sakai 55, right? And that's just 20 centimeter, correct?
Yeah.
So John, Steve likes to use Crazy Glue. I like to use a glue called Zap-A-Gap. And it's pretty much the same thing as Crazy Glue. I just think it's a little bit thicker. And with my resin kits, what I like to do is there's a product also by Zap. It's called the Zap Kicker. It's a bonding accelerator, and it saves you from getting excess glue because it doesn't go the first time, and then you have to keep doing it. And then as you re-glue, it builds up a layer, and then it doesn't fit right. So basically, what you do, this is really simple and very important. You make sure that you use just a little bit of the Zap-A-Gap on one side, and then you take, what I do, I don't like to use the aerosol. It comes in an aerosol pump for some reason. What I do is I take an old paintbrush, and I paint the other side, a light coating on the other side, so it's just a very thin layer of it, and then I just bond them together, and in like 1 second, it's instantly bonded, and it's not going to move. Now, what you need to do first is do many fitting tests to make sure that it's going to be snug or like almost snug with very little seams in it, because once it's on there, the only way to get it off is if you break it. And that's scary. So really, really, really take your time when you're building a resin kit and make sure that the parts fit perfectly. Now, that brings me to another segue. I'm doing this kit right now. It's a Monster Maker 28, 30 centimeter, 66 Godzilla, which is sweet as hell. And when you buy a legitimate kit from a great sculptor and a great company, the parts fit together like perfectly. And there's very little flash on this kit. There's very little things you need to do. You basically just put it together and it stays, and there's no very little seams or gaps or anything. I haven't even puttied this yet, and there's you can see there's hardly any
clean
areas that I need to putty up. So that's another reason not to go with the recast kits too.
Yeah, David, for everybody that's watching, oh, sorry to interrupt you. Everybody that's watching at home, would you mind David telling everybody exactly what flash is, and especially how important it is to deal with that resin kit?
I like that because you'll help me, not forget things. So flash is the excess resin or vinyl that you find when you open up a model kit box. So it's pretty easy to cut off if it's vinyl. It's a little bit more challenging if it's resin. Steve, I don't know how you get yours off. I use an X-Acto knife and kind of shave it down if it's not too thick. Oh, there you go. There's a Monster right there.
I was going to say, if you want to back it up even further, I'm just starting on the MM2875, which came in the mail the other day. And just off the bat, and David knows exactly what I'm talking about here, it's got a little bit of a slick feel to it, almost a little bit. And what happens is you spray a mold release agent in the silicone mold before you pour these so that you can release it from the mold. You pop these out. I've done it before. So what happens is whenever you get a kit, any kit, it's going to have this residue on it. That you first, vinyl, resin, whatever it is, I fill up the sink with warm to hot water and some Palmolive or Dawn dish soap, and you wash these things really good. Because I don't know if you've ever it's been about 20 years I've done it, but if you ever start to spray the primer and you get the oil slick where the paint won't stick, that's what will happen, is the paint will not stick to oil. So step one, wash this bad boy really well.
And also, even before the painting, the glue doesn't bond as well if it's got the residue on there too. So he's absolutely right. That's essential. So step one, make sure all your pieces are there. Look at the instructions, which won't come if you have a recast piece usually. Then what I do is I get a basin, like you said, fill it up with Dawn or Palmolive. Oh, you did come. Okay, Rich got it. And then I take a toothbrush and I kind of do just a little scrub on all the pieces, especially the pieces that are going to bond together, and then let it dry overnight before you begin, because I used to be lazy and not do that once or twice, and then I've regretted it because then you have to go back in and do it after you've already started to build it, which sucks. So absolutely, those are really important things to remember, and it's a step that you're not going to regret if you do it. So yeah, step one, actually wash it, and then Burley's question about glue. Now, and I was going to use John's as an example. Now, the 20 centimeter isn't super heavy, and you can do the pinning, which is what Steve was talking about. He could talk more about that later on. I wouldn't necessarily pin 20 centimeter kit because it's not super heavy. Monster Maker 28, absolutely, because it's heavy. What I do is basically just do the bonding technique with the accelerator and the zap kicker, and that should be sufficient to keep it together. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Steve?
Well, I completely agree that the smaller kit really won't need it if you can get a good bond of resin to resin piece. Anything above that, I sure would. I've done several resin King Ghidorahs, and King Ghidorah's wings is like the most taboo topic ever. And I think we're all familiar with that shape. Even at 20-25 centimeter scale, a wing about yay big with a connection point about that big is going to stay long term with just glue. I've always drilled metal rods into the base of those wings, which I always tell people, you'll thank me later, because if you ever move, you can carefully remove those wings, and they'll be a perfect fit later on. And trying to move King Ghidorah once you've glued in wings on any medium is a nightmare. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of pinning. There's some people who are a lot better at it than I am. It's an odd and interesting skill. You have to basically get the XYZ axis right at multiple points on each side. What I like to do on a piece like this, which they're actually really cool. MM28 has these little indents. You can't see them probably on my camera, but for the neck here, they actually have a guide of where they go.
There's one right there.
I'm safe drilling. There you go. There it is. I can see it.
Can you guys
So
see it?
you're usually pretty safe.
There's
There
a
you
little
go, right there. Hold it there, David.
hole. It's right there for you.
There it is.
Right there.
And tails.
And that's where the pins are going.
Too. Tail. If you're gonna pin one part of your model kit, pin the tail, because it's basically a really super heavy piece that connects to the kit, and a lot of times they need it for balance.
Yes.
So I usually just pin. I'm very bad at pinning. I can barely pass doing it. So it's kind of a stressful thing for me, and it's a little bit more advanced if you ask me, but it is necessary skill to learn. But I usually just pin the legs and the tail. Everything else I kind of don't. And Monster Maker 28 kits, this is all pretty much one piece. I mean, the only thing I had to put on were the arms and the fins.
This kit's a good example. This is the half of the Sakai Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. I don't know if you can see it very well. The tail doesn't rest on the ground, so it has to be pinned. And as you can see, this is there, and there's where I drilled it in. This is never going anywhere. But otherwise, what the kit instructions say is to drill a little piece of a paper clip in there for that to rest on. I'm not cool with that. And the base was recessed already. So, I just drilled in there, and now it's going to stay here forever.
It's definitely good, but it's definitely challenging, like you said, because if it doesn't have the area where you need to do it, you could, have it off by, a little bit either way, and it's not going to go in all the way. And then you have to start again. You have to take it out and start again. So, I mean, smaller kits, John, I wouldn't do it. I would just not pin the smaller.
Do it if you have to.
Yeah, if you don't have to, don't do it. And there are actually a couple of larger kits that I didn't pin because I didn't feel I needed to, and they've stayed pretty sturdy for me. I haven't had any problems with anything over the years, and I've moved with a couple of them too. So yeah, so that's pretty much how to build resin kits. Any other questions about resin or any of that kind of stuff?
Go ahead.
I got one with the recast. I know, I don't support them either, so I agree with you guys on that. If I have to trim something, what would be the best way to like if I want to make it as snug as possible, even though it's a recast, because it doesn't really fit snug at all? How would I go about trimming or shaving some of the resin or whatever that cheap resin is?
Well, you could use a Dremel, a Dremel tool, which if you have one, that works good too. Just put it on a lower setting and kind of shave it away.
Right.
I just a heavy duty X-Acto knife sometimes works to cut it and kind of shave it away slowly. I actually have, I don't know what it's called. It's a tool. It's like a pliers, but it's sharp pliers. What do you call that?
Oh yeah, like a wire clippers.
Yeah, I use wire clippers to get some of the more stubborn pieces of resin flash off.
And if you're just trying to take a layer off, sometimes I like to go to Walmart and get the, or even Walgreens and get the ladies' emery boards that have the foam and the different texture, and just with an emery board, just kind of nice and gentle. I use those a lot.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Roger that.
David, you mentioned about washing the pieces. Is that just for resin? What about with vinyl kits? Do you have to wash it or anything like that, or you can go straight to?
No, Steve. As Steve said, vinyl also needs to be rinsed because there is a film more often than not on kits when they come out of the molds, and there's more on some than others. I noticed, like John, your Billiken kit that I built for you recently, that had all kinds of shit, stuff all over it. Sorry, all kinds of stuff all over it, and I had to really scrape that off and take a toothbrush. And yeah,
I was excited to take him out of the box. I took him out, and he was covered in like this white, like lake scum stuff. It was disgusting, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna send this to David."
Well, and just to be safe, on occasion, I have seen kits that are either pre-washed or they're ready to go, but just from your hands, the oils in your hands handling them, I'm paranoid about that too, and I wash them big time before I start.
Yeah, so absolutely wash before you do it. It's half an hour to do
it.
The
Jaguar Billiken kit, even though it's pre-painted, I should wash it.
That's what I was about to say to you, Jordan. You don't really have to worry about it as much with that. I would definitely still wash it, but you're not painting it, so you don't have to worry about the paint sticking or the oil. I mean, it's already painted for you. So, I mean, it might still have a little bit of residue on it, but the pre-painted like this are checked before they're put in the box, so it should be okay.
I would just do it.
Mine came out.
The areas where you're going to glue it together. That's all I would do.
Yes.
Wash it. Wipe the areas where it needs to be.
Even like an alcohol wipe around the vinyl there. That'll dry real fast.
That's what I use on mine. That works perfectly.
Or a paper towel with dishwashing liquid on it. You don't have to soak it. That's just what I would do. Pretty easy.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Sure.
Let me see. What would be like? Well, I'm gonna try on this, but like for I guess the noobs or whoever who wants to get into modeling, what would you guys recommend to work on your first kit?
My very first kit was a Billiken Godzilla 1962. And that's a pretty easy kit to build and cut out. Anything by Billiken, pretty much, aside from maybe like the 92, which you probably won't find easily anyway, are pretty straightforward, easy to put together kits, and there's not a lot of difficulty in getting them together. And as Steve said before, styrene kits are good to practice on, but styrene is tough. And it's unforgiving if you make a mistake. So maybe not so much. I mean, that's what I started with the old, Aurora Monster kits back in the 70s. Those were my first model kits. And, again, if you don't glue the arm on just right, the only way to get it off is to break it, And 9 times out of 10, you're not going to break it where you glued it. You're going to break it in a different spot. So. Oh, yeah.
And we had to use the old Tester's glue that you got high from.
Yeah, that's the stuff that you put in a paper bag and you snip it.
Oh man.
Nasty stuff.
But yeah, so definitely, I think a vinyl kit would be like a Billiken or what's really easy too? Marmot. Marmot has some Godzilla kits that are pretty simple, even easier than a Billiken. There's like a 66, 54. They're really, really basic and really great way to build your confidence and start out with your modeling skills, I think.
Okay. I was a glutton for punishment. I started with the Billiken Ultraman Type A, went straight to the Billiken Creature from the Black Lagoon, and then bounced into the Wave 62 King Goji, the Godzilla. And what a nightmare that was.
Yes.
As a
really big scale.
Yeah. Not knowing what I was doing.
That was a nightmare. That was I built that a couple of years ago, and that was really hard to. The pieces didn't fit right.
No.
And I had to do a lot of modifications on that.
Yep. Yeah, I was 16 or 17 when I built that, I believe.
Yeah.
I just want to real fast. I am completely inexperienced when it comes to kit. Honestly, in the world of kit building, I've built five or six very different kits that still makes me like a total noob. I just want to let everybody know that these two, they make it sound easy, but they're like magicians when it comes to kits, and this is incredible stuff. So I know it just sounds like they're just talking about whatever because they're so knowledgeable, but coming from somebody who's done 5 or 6 kits and they still like give me nightmares, even though I kind of enjoy doing it, this stuff is hard. Like it's not something that you can just kind of jump into. You need to plan and do research and watch this and listen and ask questions, especially to people like David and Steve and Burley. Is the best thing you can do is make friends in the fandom, because if you go at this balls to the wall by yourself, I mean, I was this close to ruining this kit, and this is not a cheap kit, and this thing is beautiful. And I had to stop and went, and I asked Burley some questions after I bought it from him, and I was like, okay, let me do this right. And I just want to make it clear that they're making it sound easy, but just make sure you ask questions and do your research first before you attempt any kit, because it's heartbreaking if you ruin, especially vinyl kits. They're really easy to ruin because you can't really repair them. But this right here, I'm really glad this is happening because I'm learning a lot. That's why all of us are quiet. We're learning. So just you guys at home, don't get discouraged, but please do your research first.
Well, I really appreciate the kind words, but I mean, Steve is like levels above me, even in his techniques. I'm kind of old school when I build kits, and I kind of do it my own way, and follow my own rules. But I'm basically telling you how I do it. It might not be the right thing for everybody, but and we all, Steve too, we all have our snafus. I mean, it doesn't go perfectly for us either a lot of times. Like trying to paint the eyes on this guy. I mean, who read some of my posts, I was having some really hard times getting it. And finally I did, but it took me like 4 hours to paint 2 little eyes. So again, it's not easy to do, but if you follow the steps, it's going to be easier for you, and it just takes practice. Just don't give up, and vinyl is pretty forgiving. You can kind of do it again and pull the pieces off and re-put it back on, especially the ones that don't need to be glued. But resin is pretty unforgiving. Yeah. We could talk about how to fix things that go wrong with our kits a little bit later if you want to do that, which is a really important part about kit building, because I've built kits like 25 years ago that I've gone back, pulled apart, and rebuilt and fixed that look fantastic now, that look terrible initially. So,
David, I'd like to say, God's honest truth here, I'm a huge fan of David's. I love seeing his work, and I think he and I approach kits from completely different angles, completely different techniques, and I think David gets an extremely high level of success with what he does. And I think that's where there's something for me to learn, because you'll have, he and I, 2 completely different model builders building the same kit, getting 2 different results, but they're really high level. David, I'm a huge fan. Huge fan.
I mean, it's ditto, and I think that's amazing because, yeah, we have built the same kit that, again, looks completely different and it's different techniques, but they're just as legitimate, and I love your work too. And like I said, I'm terrified of an airbrush, so mine take a lot longer to do because I paint my base coats on. I don't airbrush my base coats. So
embrace the fear, David.
Now, I'm afraid I want to learn, and maybe we could touch on that, but I've never used one before.
I go double-fisted. I'm telling you, get one of these. The doctor says to take 2 of these and call me in the morning.
Burley, what was your first
kit? Make your life easier. What was that, Jordan?
What was your first kit that you done? Like, what was your first kit that you remember?
I don't. I'm gonna say the Billiken Baragon. I've painted several of those. But I honestly can't remember. I'm gonna say the Billiken Baragon.
Okay.
And that one's an easy one too. It's a vinyl kit. So.
That's a really good one to start with because it's not. Yes. There's no dorsal plates. It's pretty cut and dry, and it's a good one to practice on.
Mm-hmm. And it's cheap too.
And it's inexpensive, right? Exactly.
You could pick it up for like, I would say right now because the yen is down, maybe $35.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
I
On
picked one up
YJ?
for that.
Yeah, I think I seen them like that around like 3,500 yen or 4,000 yen.
Even a Mandarake too. Mandarake sells it for like 35 to 4,000 yen. So
Yeah.
it's nice.
That's it. The 65 that I had David work on that turned out so incredibly. This thing cost me 4,000 yen, and it's better than an X Plus. I love X Plus figures, but if you get the right Billiken kit and send it to the right guy, aka one of these dudes, it'll come out looking like a piece of gold.
DeSantis, have you built kit?
So I didn't want to like yell over anybody, so I figured just raising my hand would work out eventually. But it's funny because we're on the subject of painting now, and that was really my biggest question because I guess you already went, John. You wait a second. I'm just kidding. I just saw your hand up for a second there, and it was like a still picture. I didn't know if you were actually had your hand up or if you were just. But I started doing vinyl kits in 1998, and I was never particularly happy with the way I painted them, but I got better along the way, and then just many years went by where I didn't do any kits. Yet I have a stockpile of them at my house. So I kind of got really back into like kit building a couple of years ago, and I started building like I have the Billiken Baragon. I've got a bunch from collecting dust sitting like right over here. I've got the 65 Godzilla, and it kind of got to like I'm thinking like there's got to be a better way to paint these and like learn simple techniques that because like obviously when you guys see when Dave or Steve post pictures of their stuff, and especially in Dave's case, like the picture he posted of the 64B, the MM28 kit, was fantastic. I mean, just part of maybe he's just a really good photographer, but the paint job looked great and stuff like that.
Well, I'm that too. I'm just kidding.
So, like, I think talking about the painting is probably something that I think a lot of people will be interested in because as far as, like, you do have to plan out, I guess, when you're going to paint the mouth, the teeth, the eyes. I mean, like, and, some people will paint those things separate from the body itself. So, I mean, I think maybe it'd be cool to hear, like, what both Dave and Steve think about how they go about the process of like, where do you start when you paint? Do you go right for those details and then do, like, the body and the highlights? Or, like, what do you suggest?
That's an excellent question, and Steve and I do completely opposite. So, let me go first. For a lot of you know that the hardest thing for me to do on a Godzilla kit or any kaiju kit are the eyes. And the eyes can actually, in my opinion, make or break the kit, the success of the kit. Because if it's got wonky eyes, you can have like a bang-up paint job on the dorsal plates and the highlights, and it's still going to look off because the eyes aren't right. So what I do, the first thing I do is I get all my paints lined up. You choose the colors that you think you're going to use for the kit, and I use like 5 or 6 colors for Godzilla. He's not just gray. I use gray, black, brown, green, blue, and like a burnt umber, and whatever colors sort of I have handy. And what I do is I do the base coat first, which is a basic gray, and some Godzillas are darker gray than others. Like, for example, the 66, he's got an interesting scenario because he's got like a lighter undercoat, and the scaly part of him, the ridges are darker, which is kind of the opposite on some other Godzilla kits. So anyway, I'm losing track here. Basically, what I do is I do the eyes first. I go right to the eyes, and before I put the head on the kit, because if you put the kit together completely first, and then you're trying to maneuver it all around to do the eyes, it's really cumbersome, and you could damage the kit, and it's really harder to work with a piece that's already glued on than just the little head that you can kind of move around. So basically, I do the eyes first, and then I move on to the mouth and the teeth, which to me I can do in my sleep, but it's still a little bit more of a difficult component than some of the other parts of it. After the eyes and the mouth are done, then I go back and do the base coat for the whole thing. This one is a little bit different too. I figured it'd be easier to do the tail before I attach it, so I don't have to move the kit all around to do the tail. So I have to do the tail base coat, and then I'll stick it on, and then I'll do the highlights. So after the the eyes and the teeth are done. Then I do the base coat, and then I go back in and I do a wash, which is just watered down dark colors like brown and black and maybe a little gray. Payne's gray is a good thing to use because it's got some blues in it. And then I'll do like under the arms, some of the folds that like maybe need to be a little recessed. And then after that, I'll go back in with the dry brushing of the highlights. And I shouldn't even say dry brushing because I don't really like the effect of dry brushing. People over dry brush their kits all the time and they just look so fake. So I'm not even going to use the term dry brushing. I'm just going to use highlighting because my brush isn't completely dry. It's still a little wet. And, you know, Godzilla, if you look at Godzilla's stills and photos, he's always got like lighter discoloration around the knees, around the tops of the feet, the chest area, sometimes where the zipper is in the chest, underneath here. Just look at some photos of, yes, Rich?
See, I'm glad you're talking about this. That was one of my questions because when I do my reviews, I talk about depth. And this is exactly what you're talking about is what gives the figure a little bit more depth. It's just not a flat color. All right, so continue. I'm sorry.
I think, John, that's the component that you're missing. I think you're not mixing colors. You get the different colors. And don't be afraid to do browns. I use a lot of brown when I paint Godzilla because he's usually grappling around the ground and there's usually some browns, you know, on different parts of his body. And so, you know, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of different colors. And so I lost my train of thought there for a minute. And then I go, and then I go back in, and I usually use the same shade of whitish color to do the claws, feet, and the fins. So there's some continuity in the kit because they're usually kind of the same thing. I want it to look like it's all the same creature and not different parts. So anyway, so then the dorsal plates, claws, and feet. And then this is something that I wanted to talk about. There's a product that makes your kits thin. It's called Microscale, and it's a little small container. And there's a micro gloss, and there's also a micro flat. So you can use. I use the micro gloss in the mouth area to make it look like it's moist inside. And you can use it thin or thick. You can almost make it look like he's drooling saliva in there if you put it on really thick. And then I also do the eyes too. I put a little bit around the eyes to give it like a glossy look, so it's not just a flat, you know, eye. And I do it on the claws, and sometimes on the back of the dorsal plates, but not always. It all depends on the kit. So yeah, that's pretty much my order of doing things. And you know, I always go back at the end once it's all complete. And then I just take a brush and I just do little highlights here and there of like where the light is hitting and things that you want to pop out. You can have some pop out. That was a little bit confusing at the end, but that's basically the way I do it.
What David's talking about is really high level because he's going back in at the end and tying it all together.
That's it. Yeah.
And it's a very important step. I go the exact opposite. I like to assemble the kit. I like to putty the seams, sand if needed, primer, and then I start with airbrush layers. The mouth and the teeth I like, and the eyes I like to do last. Rich, I can't put it in words any better than David did. The eyes are the window to the soul on any model. And you can do the greatest paint job ever, and bad eyes will ruin it. We've all seen it. We've all done it. I've just kind of grown into an eye specialist, but the mouth is really fun for me too.
Love the mouth. Love doing the mouth.
Love it. And you know, it's funny because, and I'm sure David does the same thing. We absolutely plan out the process of where we start. You know, if you do King Ghidorah, I have to do the mouth components individually and separate because he has that weird forked tongue that's always blocking the lower palate and teeth. And a lot of times, based on the angle that the heads glue at, you have these teeth that block you from getting paint inside. So you've got to do all that stuff first.
Yep.
Then I'll glue it, putty it, repatch it at that point. David and I are doing basically almost the exact same thing, but with completely different techniques. I like to dry brush as well, although Dave 1000% correct. It's overused and it looks fake. So I'll highlight as well. But then what I'll do is I'll thin down and water down my skin tone and
That's exactly
maybe
what I was
even
gonna say.
slightly lighten it. I'll do it really ultra thin and then airbrush over to tone it in and tint it in and shade it towards the cracks so that I only basically present that highlighted portion I want seen. You basically, what David's alluding to is you lure the eye around the kit. When your audience, even if it's you, looks at the kit, you're going to be drawn to certain areas. If it's all dry brush the same, it's a mess, and you're looking all over the place. You know, you normally look at one of my kits, you look at the eyes, you look at the mouth, you look at the face. Then you might see the shade here on the chest, but you lead the eye around the kit, and I think it's an important step.
Yep, and it gives
If
it
any of that makes sense.
It makes total sense, and it gives it that you explained it better than I did. And John, it gives you, you know, what's probably missing from your kits is that depth, and it's 3D almost. I don't know how to say
Yes.
it.
And David, I think you would agree with me that the smaller the scale, the more important that is. If you're doing a 20 centimeter, you have enough height for natural light to come down and create those shadows that would give you the illusion of size. So you fool the eye and you fake it. I airbrush darker shadows in the crevices, maybe a highlight here and there. As several of you know, I just finished that Kyoto Big Guy, which is an 80th scale kit that's 3.5 feet tall. Yes, I do some shading, but natural light is going to take over on a kit that big because you have these grand spaces to work with.
Yep, absolutely.
Here's a
That's a
question,
really good
guys.
point.
Now, if you want to get some practice going in, like let's say for instance right here, all right, this is my Kyoto 64 Godzilla. I did this back in, I think, in 99 or 2000. It was, I mean, I don't think I did a bad job at the time, but it's a little dusty and stuff like that. But obviously I think I did exactly what you guys said. I over dry brushed, and like, you know, like I did some of the semi-gloss with the teeth and stuff like that. Now, say I wanted to take this, strip it completely, just give it another pass. What would you guys suggest for going back and taking another pass at a kit you've already painted?
Well, first of all, that kit doesn't look like you need to strip it.
No.
I think just unless you've glopped the paint on, you don't necessarily need to strip it. You can just go back in and do a wash in the areas that need to be darker, and then you do the highlights in the areas you need to be lighter. I mean, looks like the eyes are pretty good too. If you absolutely hate it and you want to get the paint off, I don't know what you would use for vinyl kit. What would you use, Steve? Like Pine Sol or?
I've actually had good luck with nail polish remover, acetone.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't damage. You know, I wouldn't soak it in it overnight, but I'll take an old paintbrush and work it in the sink. The wife loves when I do that. You know, because it makes a little bit of a mess. But can you hold that kit up again for me?
Let's see. There you go.
I think that looks pretty good. I mean, it just looks
It
a little.
does. You know, one of my things, and feel free to ignore me, I almost never, ever use white on a kit. White on nails, white on teeth, white on eyes.
Never.
It's really unrealistic, and it betrays the scale. So, you know, I always like to start really dark. You know, David's the mouth master, but, you know, I like to start with a really dark on the teeth. Sometimes I'll use a brush with like a bone color, an unbleached titanium is good. Tan, you know, I'll wet brush that in, and now lately I've been airbrushing in at the roots. But there's all sorts of techniques you can use. But you know, and again, never ever use red in the mouth.
I use a lot of brown in my mouth. There's a lot of brown, pink. His tongue is not red; it's pink. And I love doing the tongue because you do a lighter color of the tongue, the pink, and then you can go back in and do a wash of brown, and it kind of picks up the little nuances in the tongue, and then you do that brown over the whole thing. And what I do is I take the micro gloss and I put it on the palette, and I mix a little tiny bit of brownish red with there or pink, and then I do like instead of an airbrush, I do right above the gum line. So it looks like it's continuity, like right from, like, he's got, like, really, you know, he's an animal, like, that doesn't brush his teeth. So it's like, you know, it looks pretty realistic. So I think the microscale, microflat, and microgloss are your best friends. And so, I don't know what you use, Steve, but the reason I like these products in particular, they dry quickly and they don't get tacky. They dry, and like I've used many products that never super dry, that dry all the way, and then you touch them, they'll tacky.
Very forgiving. I love microgloss. I thin it down sometimes, and I'll, like for the eyes, I'll do 3, 4, 5 thin coats, and that'll give it kind of that jelly look, you know, that kind of visceral look.
That's something that I'm going to try.
Again, that's correct.
I'm going to try that. I've never done it that way, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Let it dry 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and you can do another coat, and you build it up, and it gets really, you know, it gives you this real jelly look, which I really like. I use the same stuff, David.
John, with your eyes on your Godzilla, which look pretty good, the shape looked pretty good, you can just get the microgloss, right? Mix a little bit of yellow or brown with it, just a tiny bit to give it sort of that not white color, and then
there actually was. I did use microgloss or like some of that in the mouth and on the eyes. It's just over the years, it's really lost its sheeny, you know, I guess it's whatever you want to call it, like the look of the gloss. But so I was familiar with that at the time. Just really quickly, David, because there might be people watching who, just when we're using certain terminology, can you just explain to people when you say a wash, like for the people that don't know particularly what that technique is, can you guys just like explain that for people?
Sure. I mean, what I consider a wash is you take a darker, usually you do a darker wash and a lighter highlight. That's what I usually do. I mean, I guess the words are interchangeable. You can do it vice versa, but basically a wash is when you take a brown or dark gray or black, mix it together, and then you shade, go in the areas, the folds of the skin, under the jaw, like in the palms of the hands, like in between the two toes, where you need a little bit of depth. And I water it down. That was your question. It's basically paint watered down a little bit. It's not going to be too glossy. It's not going to cover up the nuances of the paint job that you've just done. So
it's going to do two things. When you water it down, it's going to tint what's underneath. It's going to tint the color so that it'll darken it a bit for your shadowing. But also, depending on how much you water it down, the pigment runs in the crevices, and then the water evaporates, leaving it behind.
So that's a wash. And a highlight, I don't usually water it down. I just put a little tiny bit of paint on there, and it's usually a mix of colors. And it's sort of the same technique as dry brushing, but again, I don't like do like the flicks that people do. And I'm sorry, it's hard to articulate this. Just kind of lightly paint over the areas that you want to punch out, like to emphasize, like Steve was saying, like where you want your eye to go on the kit. And if you want it to be super realistic, if it's like, you know, Godzilla vs. Mothra 64, you want the knees to be sort of brownish. You know, you can go back in and do a little bit of highlights with brown paint over it, so it looks like he's standing in the dirt. And but don't overdo that either, because then that's going to look, you know, fake.
Subtlety is your friend.
Subtlety is your friend, and you could always go. And if you make a mistake and you go too severe, you can always go back in with a wash and make it darker again, or make sure you have some extra base color paint. If you really have to, you go back and repaint that area completely and start from scratch. So,
I like to airbrush the 64 knees and feet.
Oh, do you? There you go.
Yes, because he's always covered in dirt.
Always covered in dirt. I mean, he's never clean.
But you could also do, David, I think you'd agree, you could also do a light tan wash over those feet, and the light paint will go in the cracks, and it's a similar effect.
Yep, you could.
Yeah. You know, and I think what we're talking about here, and again, I think David completely agrees, we all do this, if not subconsciously, you have to look at the source material. I spend a ton of time looking at DVDs, looking at stills, you know, what you're painting. You know, take a look at what you're painting. So that, you know, we all tend to paint from, you know, what's in here. We all tend to paint from our preconceived notions, which are often, you know, we saw these movies as kids. They're often not correct. So, you know, take a good look at the colors, you know, because like David said, I use a lot of unconventional colors.
So do I.
You know, that are mixed in. You would look at the jar and go, what? And it comes out, and you go, oh, okay, it's right. So, you know, you really want to, and, you know, I have a degree in fine art from UCLA and color theory, but still, just taking a good look at what you're doing, you know, taking a good look at your subject matter, it's going to go a long ways. I mean, it was years before I figured out that the 62 Godzilla has yellow in his eyes, and the 65 has orange in there, because why would there be yellow and orange in his eyes? But you look at the films, and there they are.
And it's totally true. The source material is your friend, because the 62 Godzilla, his coloring is very different than some of the later Showa ones. I mean, he's got some green and tan and brown. He doesn't have a lot of blue in him. But then what's that?
The very, like, almost like a light, it looks like a light gray on screen.
It's a very tough color to duplicate, and in each scene, the lighting is different. He looks different in each scene, too. So it can be as specific as what scene do you want this model to be from. You know, do you want the Atomic Castle scene, or do you want the scene where, you know, he's, you know, wrestling on the side of Mount Fuji? I mean, it all depends, and it takes so long to get that in your head. And then on the other hand, the 92 has so much blue in him, like he's blue-gray. Oh yeah, it's beautiful, just beautiful. Beautiful.
I love the 62.
I love the 62 too, and you know, one of my favorite pieces in my whole collection is the Atragon GK 62 30-centimeter kit. I'll almost used a bad word again. I love that kit, you know. But
my best advice for the 62: track down a paint called Mudstone. I swear by it. The color is called Mudstone.
Who puts it out?
I have a jar. Let me grab it.
But yeah, each Godzilla is a different color. I mean, you know, the Heisei Godzillas are there's a lot of blue in them.
Yes.
The show is there's a lot of gray and brown in them. And the 54 we don't really know, so I always put a lot of brown tones in my 54. Oh, is that it, Steve?
The ceramic coat Mudstone.
Oh wait, that's
this is my favorite paint for the 62. As you can see, it's an odd-looking color, but you thin it out and you primer your kit like a flat black, okay? And you airbrush several layers of that, mix in a little dark brown to start, and it comes out on the black with that grayish skin tone. It's just, that's the color.
Wow.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right, hey, let's shift gears for a second. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, funny enough, for those of you who saw the big guy I did for Paul, there's a lot of that Mudstone in it, mixed with other colors. So it's a great base coat for Godzilla.
Yep. Now that you say that, it makes sense because, you know, having seen it in person now, now it puts that all together. Very cool. Burley, you're working on Mechanicon.
Yes.
How's that going?
It's not done yet, but here it is.
Oh, hang on a second.
Looks fantastic. I said that earlier. It looks perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it looks great, dude.
It actually lights up, but if I remove this clay here, it can light up. So.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Let's see that again?
Nice.
Yes. I just started.
Here's an example of where I failed at my technique trying to paint a Mechanicon. I tried to do that not airbrushed, and I just couldn't get it right. I couldn't get the streaks out as hard as I tried. I mean, that's where I really wish I knew how to do an airbrush, because metal
and you're right, David.
What's that?
So you're right. The reason why I got to airbrush was because I wanted to paint Mechanicon, and the thing is, it's so challenging using, you know, just paintbrushes to really get the smooth surface, and so
Can't.
it's difficult, you know. I can't paint my Mechagodzillas correctly. I can't paint Mechanicon correctly, and so you know, with like more animal-like kaijus, you can really hide the brushstrokes, but not with smooth metallic surfaces.
The funny thing is, like, it's funny you guys mention that because that was actually on my mind because right here I have a kit that again I started. This is a Billiken Ultra 7, and obviously if you're going to be doing the suit, I guess you would say, and then Ultra 7 obviously has these very fine, like the silver lines that go down around the suit. I would imagine that an airbrush for getting that to be very even, and then also probably as more of an advanced technique, having to mask that off to get those silver lines to be exact. That's something I definitely wanted to hear the opinions of you guys about, and you kind of segued with that with the Mechanicon, which was cool.
All right, now you may not agree with me on this one. Watch, religiously the Ultraman series like I do. The suits are kind of like made of foam rubber, and if you want it to look realistic, it doesn't make any difference if you have a little, it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth to look good. Because I've painted many Ultraman kits without an airbrush, and I think it looks great because the suit itself isn't completely smooth like Mechanicon is, right? I guess if you really think about it, even Mechanicon isn't completely smooth either. But I've done like Type A Ultraman is kind of spongy looking. He doesn't have to be completely smooth to look okay. I mean, I'm sure it'd be a whole different ball of wax to do an airbrush, but I'm pretty satisfied with my Ultraman kits that I've done, and I haven't used airbrush. So, and I mean, I wouldn't even begin to know how to mask it all off to get those little stripes and lines in an Ultraman kit. That to me is way beyond my skills.
Yeah, I think with the Mechanicon kit, you can get away with just using paintbrushes because again, it's right. You're right. The suit, there's a rubber look to it, and so I mean, you can do that, but like for characters like Kiryu or 1993, and those guys, you really would have to use an airbrush, and I don't know. That's characters that you just have to use airbrushes.
You've got a Jet Jaguar that's also a Billiken kit that you did some work on too. That's got this really neat metallic look. Do you have that close to you? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, like, look at the difference between the technique that he used on that and just kind of the basic. This is the factory paint job on mine, and look at Burlee's. Like, it just adds. It looks like a whole different kit. A whole different.
Now with this one, I didn't really use it. I didn't paint it, but I used charcoal and pastel. I crushed charcoal pastel colors that looks like rust, and
cool.
I brushed it on, and then I just gave it a weather look, and then I sprayed dull coats over it.
And again, these are your kits. Whatever you want to do, I mean, you can experiment, have fun with them. I mean, I like both of them. I like the Precision one, and I also like that one too. So it's all about what you want to get out of your kit. I mean, for example, when I was having all those difficulties with the eyes on the 66, I couldn't get it to look just like it did. Hello. I couldn't get it to look just like it did in the film, and it was looking really fake, and I didn't want to like kind of pretend to do the dots the wrong way and everything. So basically, I abandoned that. Oh, hey there.
The whole family.
David back.
The whole family's there.
It's everybody.
I abandoned that whole look to do my own style of eye, which looks similar to it's a cross between a 65 and a 64, and that's fine because it's my kit and I'm not selling it. Now, if I were doing it for somebody who wanted a really authentic, exact 66 eye, then Steve would definitely be your man because I'd still be working on it trying to get it right. But yeah, I mean, there are no rules really. If you like it, that's cool too. Like there's so many options, and again, if it doesn't look good the first time, you can do it over again as long as you don't have the paint glopped on that you have to soak it off or get it off. It's just fun, and that segues into X Plus figures. and how when you get them out of the box sometimes they're lacking in a lot of detail. Like I think the best example of that is probably Steve, what you did for, I don't know whose it was, that
Bell?
Godzilla.
Michael Cavalleros.
The Godzilla Millennium. You took a mediocre paint job, or mediocre to bad paint job, and you made it look just like it stepped out of the film, which is amazing. I think that is amazing. And
thank you very much.
So that is another thing that can be done too. Once you get comfortable in learning these skills of painting, you can elevate your X Plus kits to look much better than they do out of the box. And don't worry about if you want to sell it down the line, because I've sold things for higher because I made them better.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, oh, don't paint your kits, you'll never be able to sell them, or don't paint your X Plus. That's BS, because I've had people like fighting over kits that I've sold because I've upgraded them.
Well, David, I've got one that you upgraded that I think we've talked about before. And this guy, real fast, if you can see it, David did some amazing work on this guy right here. This is a 25 centimeter X Plus, and this thing was a train wreck, honestly, before David got a hold of it.
I did surgery on him.
Yeah, you did surgery on the mouth. You did a complete paint job on the fins, which X Plus completely got wrong for film accuracy. But another one that I love of David's is you did it was a diamond reissue 30 centimeter GMK, was it not? Because that thing just looks plastic out of the box. A lot of them do. They just there's no highlighting, there's no wash, there's no anything. It just looks like the color vinyl, and then they put some white teeth and claws on it. And David did a nice, well, I guess we're going away from dry brushing, but you did a nice highlight job and a bunch of other things on there, and it ended up looking a lot better. So I'll probably end up sending mine away too.
I get requests like once a week to repaint the diamond reissue Gargantuas.
Oh yeah, you've done some incredible work on those.
Yes,
you've done some amazing work on those, Steve.
You've done some like really avant-garde, awesome stuff. I think it was Dan Miller's.
Did you do it for Dell too, Steve?
I'm sorry?
You did it also for Dell too, right?
I did a repaint set for Dell, and Dan's were repainted, but Dan's are 100% metal paints. They're all metallic. There's nothing flat on any of it. The teeth, the gums, everything. That's what he wanted.
You said metal paint, Steve? Or like
a metal flake, like the pearlescence and metallized paints.
Yeah, Dan wanted them to look like Pilot Ace or Marmot figures more as opposed to like model kits. So you nailed that too. I mean, I would never think to do that, but when he posted those, I was like, at first I was like, and then I'm like, that's pretty good. That's pretty courageous to do that, because that is complete departure from anything that you know a conventional repaint would be like on the Gargantuas.
I've done a few more metallic versions. I'm doing a couple now for them, but yeah, it takes me out of my comfort zone big time. I would much rather, I'm used to doing realistic stuff. And Michael's Millennium Godzilla, he basically hired me to repaint the eyes because, thankfully X Plus has been a bunch of screw ups lately. They missed a paint app at the factory on his eyes. They were only half painted. So he hired me to paint the eyes. And when I got it in hand, I'm like, well, this thing is plastic, so I need to redo the whole thing. So I think it surprised him that, it just had to be done, because X Plus stuff can look really great once it gets some paint.
It can. And again, I tend to do really subtle nuances and things. Like you can't, if you hold it up from a distance, you can't really tell that much. But if you look closely, like I don't typically do like really out there like, oh my God, this is a repaint. Just real subtle nuances to it too. And one of the things that I did too is I watched, I took the 89, the 89 30 centimeter, and I never could stand the mouth. It's so open, so wide, and it looks like a trap jaw. So I actually, glued mine in place and puttied it up on the bottom, which we haven't talked about yet. And then I just matched the paint and painted it up, and it just looks, it elevated that kit so much. And I think you guys have seen the the 30 centimeter X Plus 84 kit that I made the mouth closed.
Yep.
Because that mouth, out of the box, that mouth is way too open. I mean, Club 84, do you agree?
I mean, I love the figure regardless, but I was really impressed with that particular piece that you did, and it looks seamless. But I mean, that's got to just take so much practice and skill. And I mean, I myself, I don't think I'm a terrible sculptor, but that's to do something like I don't even know if I'd have the guts to do that to an existing thing. Maybe like a different kit, but
terrifying. Believe me, when I ripped that out, when I cut that out, I'm sweating. I'm like, if I don't get this back in just right, I'm screwed. But luckily, knock wood, it turned out pretty good. And you know, it's just taking that step. And you know what it was? Kyle Yount actually went to the X Plus Studios when he was in Japan the time before last time, and he took a video in their shop, and on the shelf was a prototype of a closed mouth 84 30 centimeter, and I said, damn, that's what I would love to have. And at first, I closed it a little bit because I was too timid, and then I think it was something Steve did, and I just said, screw it, I'm going to do it all the way. So I took it out again, and I closed it all the way up, and luckily it fit pretty well. Sometimes they don't want to fit, and you have to cut the back out and push it back further because it extends too far out, which gets really scary. But I suggest if you want that done, send it to Steve or me. Then we can do that part for you. But
Dave, I have one question for you and both Steve. As far as when you guys go to do gradients on either the claws, which seem to be much more easy to do with an airbrush, like if you do like the gradient with like darker to lighter, and then on the dorsal fins, because the dorsal fins don't just go skin tone to fin tone. You got like that little bit, like what I used to do. What I did with this one right here is like I kind of tried to mix the whatever I used for the skin tone with the dorsal plate tone to get like an in between.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean I think it works out pretty well, but I was wondering what you guys thought about that process.
I think you're on the right track, and that's the beginning. You also have to go in there and add other colors to it too. It needs yellows, it needs browns, and it needs to look. I like to make my dorsal plates look like bone. And what I do is I'll paint the whole thing the base color, and then I'll go back in and use the color that I used on the base coat, and with gray or yellow, or I usually don't use white either, but sometimes I use a little bit of white just to lighten it up a little bit. And then you do the ends, and then I go back in, and then I do like another layer in between of like brownish yellow, and then at the very end I do a wash of brown on the whole thing. So, and then if it's a scene where he's coming out of the water, I'll use the micro gloss on the back of the fins too to make it look sort of damp. But yeah, you're on the right track. You just got to go in and add some more colors to it.
David Bang! Sorry, had to do that.
Thank you, Rich.
What's up, dude?
What's up? You?
Sorry, I was holding this up trying to get his attention because David Bang, he's over there wearing my shirt and he's a big fan, so I had to give him a little shout out there.
Woo, thank you.
Bam!
I kept seeing the sign. I'm like, he wants David and Burley to talk more. I'm talking too much. I need to.
No, I didn't understand what that was all about either. I was
Sorry.
Like,
I was trying to be discreet about it. No, actually, next live show we gotta have name tags like this on ourselves.
as a stage
I had to text
member,
Rich. Oh my God, I'm talking too much.
No.
Burley, what kind of airbrush do you use?
I have
Nope.
the compressor I use is a. I don't know why it just left me.
Or whatever.
You know what? I completely forgot. Let's see. But I use the Anthem 155 airbrush. The compressor is made by. I forget the company. I have to look at it again. But the brush I use is the Anthem 155, and I think that was recommended by Steve.
Probably. I'm using the same compressor I started with in 1989. It's still kicking. But But I too am using an Anthem 155 from Badger, and I'm also, of course, my phone's ringing. For high detail stuff, I'm using an Iwata HPA, which this is the reservoir for paint. It holds between 6 and 8 drops of paint, and that's it.
Can you hold it higher, Steve?
Oh, sorry.
It looks like the gun that the aliens used in Monster Zero.
It is the noisy cricket. Yes.
There you go. So, guys, Stephen Burley, what would you guys say for people who've never used an airbrush before but really want to get some practice with it before they go and apply it to a kit? How would you tell them to kind of get used to the airbrush and kind of figure out how, basically how it works?
Well, you can get some pretty inexpensive airbrushes, like at Michael's, buy like a single action, like a Badger single action brush. You can, they warn you not to thin down paints. I thin down paints all the time. You can go to like Blick's art store and buy pre-thinned airbrush, opaque airbrush paints, and those are really good. A little more expensive, but really, really good and very forgiving. The key is keep it clean, wash it out as I'm going along. You don't want anything gunking up in there. But, buy a cheap plastic single action brush, and get like a flat surface. Get a paper towel, and just see, the whole key is, I've been using it so long, when I push that button and I know what's coming out, okay? And David would tell you the same thing. He's got his favorite brushes, we all do, that when you touch that brush to the model, you know how it's going to act. You know how it's going to behave. You have your favorite brushes. You pick what you need for the job. It's the same with an airbrush. You just need to get used to, like the airbrush I'm using, it's high pressure. So I've got to turn down I have a little valve on the compressor, let a little more air out, and turn down the pressure on the brush because it comes out with a vengeance. So you just got to get used to how the paint comes out of the brush and how it goes onto your model so that you get the effect you want. And it's just a trial and error. It's like I think I told David earlier today, it's like no limit hold'em poker. It takes 2 minutes to learn how to use and just, and years to master. But I highly recommend, just as you saw with Burley's Mechanicon, those are effects that you can't get with a brush.
Yeah. All right, I have an airbrush question because I'm just like you guys. I've not used one before. How do you prevent the paint from shooting out and glopping up on a particular area and losing detail in the scales or the folds of skin? Like my biggest fear is I'm doing the face and then it just kind of juts out and a thick coat comes over and that terrifies me. I can control a brush completely.
Well, you can
David. It's the same thing.
Airbrush. It
what?
doesn't come to your airbrush. It's not going to come out like that.
Okay. All right.
And also, you can dial it back so that you have a higher air to paint ratio. So when you push that button, you're getting air. That's to prevent, you glopping onto your model kit, right, David? And then as you pull back, that's a dual action. As you pull back and you release the paint little by little, that's how you exert that control. Keep the tip clean. As you use acrylic, like if you thin down acrylic, it can bunch up on the end of the needle. I don't know if you've had that happen, Burley, or not.
No, not
and I always kind of take a fingernail and clean it a little bit just to be safe.
Well, this is interesting. I entered the model contest at G-Fest last year, and I won like third prize or second prize or something, and I won an airbrush. But Stan forgot to tell me until after I went home, so it's sitting it's locked at G-Fest at the hotel. But when I go this year, I get to pick it up. So I have an airbrush. And so between now and then, I got to get my confidence up and.
You'll love it.
You'll love it. You know what? I avoided it for years. The first kit I ever did with an airbrush was the old Kyoto Gremlin, the 1/1 scale from Gremlins.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do what it needed with a brush, and I kicked myself for the last 10 years before that, going, why did I not do this sooner?
Steve, what do you mean by single action brushes?
Oh, good question. That's an excellent question. There's two types of airbrushes. There's a single action and a dual action. A single action, you push the button down and the air and the paint come flying out. You can't control the air to paint ratio. A dual action, the button, actually here, this is a dual action brush. If it were single, you push the button and the paint comes out. If this is a dual action, I can control through this dial, okay, which moves the pin in and out, how much air to paint ratio I'm getting. I like to do a little more air than paint. So when I push, I am getting the slightest bit of paint or just air. And as I pull back on the button, it opens up, it pulls that pin back and lets more paint through. So you can actually control, if this makes sense, the size of the beam of paint coming out so that you can control it. Otherwise, with a single action, you're going to spot of a silver dollar or a 50-cent piece or a quarter, whatever size you've got, whatever tip you're using. This is the Badger 155. I'm sure Burley would agree. It's a good workhorse. It's a good. You can get some decent small detail with it, but you can go pretty wide as well. And that's what allows that control, is a dual action brush.
So for like noobs like me, if I want to practice, get a single action first.
Well, yeah. Before you drop $100 or $200 on an airbrush, yeah, because you can get those pretty cheap. And Michaels has these great sales where you see in the paper it's like 50% off any one item, and then they'll have a sale on an airbrush that's $120 and you walk out of the store with it for like $50-$60.
That's awesome.
Then go for it.
All right.
The Iwatas will run you $200, $300 and up, and they're great brushes, but they are a little tricky. So the Badger 155, the Anthem really is it's a clone of one of the lower end Iwatas, is what it is.
It's great. I mean, I've never airbrushed before. I've been doing it for 2 weeks. And Mechanicon is my first airbrushed kit. And so, I mean, the Anthem 155 really it really works. It's easy for beginners. So I'm a beginner. So.
It looks great.
Well, it looks great, man. It doesn't look like a beginner job.
I'm completely impressed with your job on that. It's beautiful. And
thank you, Dave.
until I get skills, if I get a Mechanicon or Mechagodzilla, I'm gonna send it to one of you guys. But one thing I wanted to touch on before we end, I don't know how long we're going to go on for, but I know people had questions about puttying and filling in gaps and seams and things, which is super important in Godzilla kits too. There's two products out there that I swear by. I used to use a product that many of you use. I don't know if Steve still uses it, Milliput, which was what it was the only thing I knew to use. And you have to use it in a ventilated room. It's super toxic. I used to get a headache from it. It gets all over your hands. It gets in your fingernails. And it takes a long time to dry, and it's really hard to work with. So no more Milliput. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to tell you something to get that's going to, you'd be like, why haven't I been using this from the beginning? It's a company called AVES, A-V-E-S. And there's two products. Actually, there's more than two, but two that I use. Epoxy Sculpt and Epoxy Clay. And basically what that is, it's a two-part compound where, you got it right there? You have it?
No, I don't, but I have something else.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's totally different, yeah. But it's probably the same kind of idea. You put the two pieces together, equal parts, and you knead them together as much as you want. And it turns. There's actually now there's different colors. They have black, they have green, they have white, they have tan, and I just like the normal gray because it fits with Godzilla kits easier and it's cheaper. So basically, you put the two parts together, and you can use your fingers. It doesn't smell, has no scent. It's not toxic. It says you use gloves, but I've never used gloves, and I'm fine. But you basically put it into the crack. Roll out a little thin strip, put it into the seam or the crack, and then I bought several of the different watch repair kits, and they have all those little tiny pieces that you can screw into watches, and they're all different widths and some are thicker, some are thinner, and I use those to sort of sculpt accordingly the texture of the Godzilla scales or the dorsal plates or whatever. And then what's great about it is it's dry in 3 hours. It's completely dry and it's hard, and you can paint right on it. And even better than that, if you put it on and you don't do any texture in it, you can go back in even after it's dry and carve out texture and nuances in it. So I swear by that. I never build a kit without it. I actually ran out, and I had to like order some right away because I have to have it. I still need some for this, and I got it just in time. But
How much is it, David?
it's pretty inexpensive. I mean, if I buy it directly from them, because usually it's about the same price everywhere. Some places, if you buy it on Amazon, it's usually more. But you can actually look on eBay. eBay sells it a lot too. And either one, epoxy sculpt or epoxy clay. I don't know, Steve, do you use it, and which one do you like better?
You know, you all are going to laugh at me because I'm really lazy. I use Testors model epoxy putty for beginners, and I've been using this for 25 years. You can get it at Hobby Lobby or Hobby Town. Any hobby or model store carries it. You can see the price. It's $2.79 a bottle, or it's a tube, and it's got this nice thin tube, and you squeeze it and it comes out in a bead, which is really great for getting in the seams of kits. I wet my finger and you can wipe off the excess easy. And what I use is I have a dentist in the family, but if you ever go to your dentist, periodically either the dental tools they use to clean your mouth break, or they have to throw them away after a certain amount of time you use. Next time you go to the dentist, ask your dentist for his old tools, and they're usually really good about giving them to you, and I use dental tools.
Wow. See?
This stuff dries in about 30, 40 minutes. You know, you can play with it while it hardens, and once it's hard, you can machine it, or you can carve into it as needed. And I've been using it on every kit. I used it on the anywhere from. I use it on all of them. I've used Milliput. I used to use Tamiya's Mr. Putty, Gunza Sangyo Mr. Putty. There's a lot of options out there, and they'll all work. But for kits, especially vinyl kits, this little applicator here, just comes out in a nice thin bead. You can control it pretty easily, and you can get it right in this. I've been sold on it, and it's been kind of my go-to putty for decades.
Is it toxic? Does it smell?
Not really, no. No, it's not bad at all.
I'm always manipulating it, and I don't want anything that I'm going to get a headache, because I do my work in the garage. I mean, Rich just saw the space that I do, where the magic happens.
Yeah, the magic spot.
I sit on the floor. I only paint on the floor in the kitchen.
Oh,
between
okay.
the carpet.
Awesome. But
yeah.
no, it's definitely something that I'm going to try. I mean, I like the idea of the little applicator that goes right into the crack.
You squeeze it right on in, and I've been using it since the late 80s.
Wow. So that's cool, and what I use is good too, and that's a little bit more expensive. That's going to run you about maybe $12 for both parts, but it lasts a long time. And what's good about the epoxy sculpt or the epoxy clay, if you have a broken dorsal plate or a broken claw or a broken anything, you can sculpt it out of this stuff, and it looks exactly like what what was there before. And that's what I used when I do the repairs on the jaws, and because it is like a sculpting material. I mean, it would be harder to do it with yours, Steve. Yours is more for the cracks, right? I mean,
you can build it up for anything, like if you were to, say like on a 64X Plus, if I wanted to move the mouth up, I actually use Super Sculpey and sculpt it to match. And you can use a hair dryer or even boil water in the microwave and pour it over, and that'll cure it.
But Sculpey, unlike this, I've used that in the past too. Sculpey can crack over time, even if it's hard. This stuff doesn't seem to crack. It stays sort of. I don't know. I swear by it, and I mean.
It can. You know what you do to prevent the cracking, David?
What's that?
I use a thin layer of the Crazy Glue liquid right over it, and it creates a shell that bonds with the skin of it.
Wow.
It won't crack.
Cool. Well, now you guys have several options to use, and you don't have to use. And you can throw away your Milliput, which you're going to kill your brain cells. and I mean, I used that for 10 years, and I hated it. I didn't like that step because it always gave me a headache.
It does.
Because of that.
You said that you use Crazy Glue liquid over the what you use, and it doesn't affect like the paint. Like if you paint over the where the Crazy Glue dries.
No, but It doesn't, and usually, your glue, if you do it right, should only be, on the interior surfaces. You really shouldn't have glue on the outside of the model. But no, I've never had glue or paint not stick to any crazy glue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to go off of that, like this is my Kong scope. Like I used 2-part epoxy, and then I used Sculpey too. It's sort of a mixture. All the white spots are the 2-part epoxy, and then after I did all that, I basically took not crazy glue but super glue, the liquid form, and I just sort of rubbed it all over the entire scope.
Wow.
So it keeps it sealed. It protects it from cracking.
It looks great. It looks really
It
good.
looks fantastic.
Thanks.
Charlie, is that something you want to talk about? I mean, or is that to keep on the DL? I'm not sure.
Well, I'm open to talk about it. I mean, I don't mind. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I can talk about it. It's something I'm not a pro at it. I'm just starting out. But I basically start with. I mean, this is not even model kit. This is something else. That's sculpting. So I start with a wire armature, and then I wrap around the armature with aluminum foil, and then I go over it with Super Sculpey, which is it's an oil-based clay that you can cook. And then I go over it with details. I use the 2-part epoxy putty, and then I overlay with the glue. I mean, parts of these are, it's like the arm here, the hand here. You can take a look at it. Where you see the darker layers, that's Sculpey. And the hands and the fingers themselves, they're all, that was sculpted from pure, the 2-part epoxy from this right here. It's the Magic Sculpt that I showed earlier. But this is the result. This is the cast, the resin cast, and this is the original sculpt. So, yeah. And it comes in, I'm all over the place now, but I don't know. You guys have any questions?
I can't wait to see it painted up. That's my question.
So, well, I can tell you how I built this up. I think you guys said earlier that that you should use metal rods to connect the limbs of resin kits, and this is what I did with the arms, because the 2-piece. The arms are not connected, so I basically took a Dremel tool and I drilled holes here and here, and then I cut about a piece about this long from this rod here, and I basically put it inside the arms, and then I sealed it off with the epoxy putty, and then I sprayed a coat of primer over it, and I'm about to paint it tomorrow.
Cool.
Yeah,
Can't wait.
But it's lightweight. It's in the same scale as Mechanicon, and it goes real well with the X-Plus Gorosaurus. So, yeah. So.
Nice.
I can't wait to see it next to the Gorosaurus.
You want to see it? Okay. Yeah, I could.
And can you show us your Gabra too?
Oh yeah, I could do that.
I mean, that's the one.
I'm so excited for the Gabra.
I mean, X Plus needs to do one eventually. I mean, I would be so stoked if they do that.
Paint that bad boy.
So it's like the Kong is actually lighter than the Gorosaurus, even though it's resin. It's hollow cast, so it's really light. I mean, I could just toss it back and forth,
Careful.
No, stop.
Yeah, bro.
We gotta do an.
It went out the window. It went out the window.
So this is Gabra. He's made of Sculpey. Again, a wire armature, aluminum foil interior. The horns, the claws are made from the 2-part epoxy. I'm still working on it. I'm not too fond of the pose yet and the face. So.
You know what?
He's 30 centimeters.
It's the best pose that I've ever seen a Gabra kit in. I actually like the pose.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I might keep it then.
The only thing.
So that's how he looks.
If you want a little suggestion, I
Yes.
think the hands are a little bit too big.
I agree, David, and I'm
Just-
still working on them. I mean,
The sculpt is beautiful. I just think they're a little bit too large for Gabbro. But again, just really scour your source material and see how big. I mean, maybe they were that big, and he's got big hands too. But I love the way you got the bumps and the skin texture. That's pretty. You nailed it, I think.
Thanks. Yeah, and I do agree. The hands are a little big. They were actually bigger than this too, so I had to like downsize them. But I will downsize them even more.
I mean, the feet are great. He has big ass feet, so the feet are great. Good.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see that painted, Burley.
Yeah. Well, I mean, still clay. So once I get the con kit out, then I'm gonna have this guy cast it, and he'll be available. So.
Nice. Are you going to G-Fest next year?
It depends on my schedule because I teach in the summers too. So.
You could bring those. I mean, those would be really popular if you brought them to G-Fest too. People would love to see.
I know. I'm really debating. I want to. We'll see. Yeah.
Come to the show.
Steve, are you going next year?
I don't know. I go to San Diego Comic-Con every year, which is a pricey show, and it's like about 3-4 weeks afterwards. I haven't been to G-Fest since it was in Pasadena in Hollywood back in the day.
I got to tell you, last year was my first year.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most amazing experiences. I had a blast. I mean, met so many great people, and it's going to be hard to beat last year's with that concert, I got to say, but because that to me was like that was worth the price of admission.
Yep.
No pun intended. It was incredible, but I had never met Rich before. I never met any of these guys before. That was the first time, and it was we just had so much fun, and everybody gets along, and there was no drama that I was part of anyway. I mean, I don't know, but
I'm trying to go this
I'll get out there one of these days. I promise. I've always been kind of low key, and I really didn't know that people liked my work. To be honest with you, I stopped painting for several years, in fact. So now it seems that people enjoy it. I know I'm busy as hell. And I got to say, there's a model kit arriving Friday that Burley sent me to paint for him, and there's no greater honor as an artist than to paint, to have another artist who you really respect ask you to do something for their own collection. Really privileged.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree. I may be sending you stuff at some point too. Like I almost sent you those eyes.
And I'll do it.
I got to bang it out. No, I like them now. I'm happy, but
good.
But no, I was very close to putting that in an envelope and sending them out to you because.
And I think a lot of I've talked to several. Hopefully, the folks listening that I'm sure have contacted me. If anyone ever has questions, post it on Facebook or send me a PM on Facebook, and I never mind giving out advice. There's all these different ways to tackle things. But I'm happy, if I can help someone, continue the hobby, God bless. I'd love to see it, continue. There aren't that many of us left that really paint and build kits anymore. I wish there were more.
Ryan Mitchell, Ryan Mitchell's really, really big about building kits too. Yeah. I definitely know if he was here, he would be another wealth of knowledge because, for those that seen his post on the Godzilla Collectors Group, he just got back from a trip in Japan, and he bought a ton of kits, and he's going to be building them all, over a period of time. But, I don't know, Steve, have you ever talked to him? David, I know you have, right?
I've not talked to him in person, but I've corresponded with him a lot. Yeah, he's very, very knowledgeable about, like, sculptors and who sculpted this kit. Like, for example, yesterday I asked him who sculpted the Billiken 92, and he actually knew. Of course he did. So, he is definitely a wealth of knowledge when it comes to these kind of kits, and he's very old school, and I'm sure he's definitely not a fan of recast. So no. I almost guarantee. No. And if you think I'm opinionated, Ryan is 10 times more opinionated than I am, which is actually not a dig, but it's just it's an observation. So.
It's really funny because we were talking about like Burley's his custom sculpts like the Gabra and the King Kong. Like, am I the only person here who is absolutely peeved off about the fact that there has never been a really, really good Cybot Godzilla 1984 kit, like in a larger size or anything like that. Like, I've actually thought about, like, I wonder if I could try my hand at actually sculpting like a big Cybot Godzilla 84, and it's been something that's been gestating in my mind for a while. So I like this, like, how
You should do it.
about that, because, like, I think some of us could maybe we should have a fresh Final Live about how to do casts and stuff like that one day, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's one of those things, John, that's perfect, where if they're not doing it, do it yourself. I mean, everybody knows that I wanted to have a complete Destroy All Monsters lineup. I'm sure you're all sick of my photograph already, but
No,
too
it's
bad.
awesome.
Too bad. I mean, I'm so stoked.
David, you've been waiting a long time for that, so
I've been waiting a long time.
that's crazy, man.
Those of you who know me over the years know that I'm just so happy to have them all. And anyway, they did not do Amanda, a 68 Amanda, so I said, damn, I'm going to make my own. And I got a, luckily X Plus did a Dragon from Ultra Q, which is the same suit, essentially, but it has the horns from the
Atragon version.
Atragon Amanda. So, you know, I've actually since done 3 of them. Samson West has one, Greg Corrado has one, and I've got the other. And you know, cutting those horns off was terrifying. I'm like, I'm just ruining this whole thing. And you know, that actually turned out pretty good. And now I have a complete Destroy All Monsters lineup. And
That's the one with the little girl on top, right?
yes, so I have a stray little girl who's now riding Paragon.
Okay, girl.
Yeah, because she, you know, he had a little piece where you can, you know, have her sit on there, but I had to cut that out. But yeah, no, if you don't see it, just like Burley, like he wanted a Gabra, so he tried his hand at making it, and you know, luckily it came out pretty good. And so I think that's a great idea, John. There's so many people who dig 84. You may even be able to commission somebody to do it because it is such a popular year. I mean, there's a whole contingent of people who just love the 84 Godzilla suit. So.
And I'm one of them. But like I said, if for some reason, I know that there was I think a resin Kyoto kit of the Cybot, but I know Yuji Sakai has, to my knowledge, never sculpted a Cybot. I know he did the head of it on the nameplate series. But as far as I know, he's never worked on it. And the funny thing is I did try my hand with sculpting about like 10 years ago or so. My thing is I couldn't get a steady, like a stable armature, and I did the same technique that Burley talked about with using the wire, twisting it up, and then using like aluminum foil to kind of pad it out on the inside. But I didn't have good success with that, so maybe my technique was just like all over the place. I don't know, but I really want to see a nice Cybot Godzilla 1984.
Now that is a question that you ask Ryan Mitchell, because if it exists, he would know about it, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe some sculptor, some obscure sculptor did it, like, you know, in 1990 or something, and it's out there somewhere. We've just never seen it. Some garage guy, some garage kit, which is, you know, funny enough, that's how all of these started. They were called garage kits.
Has Sakai ever been to G-Fest?
What about the MM28 84?
I mean, garage kits were basically fans like us who had skills to do these things, and they wanted to have representations of these characters from the movies they love, and you know, they just started it. Like Billiken, they were considered garage kits back in the day. Volks they were garage kits. Kyoto was, and then over the years they've gotten refined and they've gotten bigger. But some of the smaller companies still do the best work, in my opinion. Like, I think the paragon of excellence is Monster Maker 28. I just love their stuff. And also, Tease Facto does some really sweet kits too. Shinzen. I don't know, what else. What else do you think does good? Dynamos.
I've got this Facto kit right here.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. That's sweet.
Yep. That's resin I got to put together. I think, was it Jordan? Did you ask if Sakai was ever at G-Fest?
Yeah. Has he ever been to G-Fest?
Yeah, he was there in Hollywood in 2000, and in fact, I actually had, you can't even see it because it's worn off, I had him sign in gold, I had him sign the chest of this Godzilla, And I left a picture with him holding it, but it's kind of came off. That's why I never really went back and messed with this because it had his signature on it, but he was there. He actually had the maquette, the Godzilla 2000 Millennium maquette with him.
Oh, okay.
Now
And in the old days, they would come like in wrinkled up Japanese newspaper. You know, they really were made in someone's garage.
Yep, they were garage kits. And, you know, speaking of the Sakai maquette, I got that not this Christmas, but the Christmas before. One of my favorite kits I ever built and I ever have. I just love that kit. It's sweet. And talk about a pain in the ass to build. That one was really hard because of all the little fins and the and potential for breakage was super high on that kit. So on the other hand, I've never done a King Ghidorah kit before either. I've never built one. So
nerve-wracking.
I've always been too scared, and you know, I tried to trade something for Chris Williams. He picked up a Image 68 King Ghidorah flying kit at GFED.
I love that whole set.
I wanted it, and I tried to make a trade with him, but he said, no, I'm going to attempt it. So, yeah, I almost had one to build, but not.
It's a cool one. I've got a couple behind me.
Yeah, your Ghidorah Thai poster of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster kit next to Tommy Castle, that to me is one of my favorite sculpts and pieces that I've ever seen. I absolutely love that piece. I always have.
You know, that's the only one I've ever seen. It's number 4 of 40. That's the Kai cast.
Wow.
And they never come up, but I love that kit.
Even before I started speaking to you online, like I saw that kit and I'm like, that kit is beautiful. This guy's so lucky. Who is this guy? You know, he has this really obscure kit, and you know, I was like already coveting it like 3 years ago. You know,
I have the poster too.
Yep.
You know, that's based off an old Turkish poster.
Yep.
Had to have it. Love the 62. Love the 64 Ghidorah. When announced, it was like I gotta have it. You know, what an odd pairing that is. I gotta have those. Yeah, there's so many. You know, there's another one that Sakai did of the 62 Godzilla fighting Mothra, fighting the 64 Mothra.
Recently,
it came out like a year or two ago, and it was like $800.
It's recent. It was like 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, he shows that stuff way in advance.
Yeah.
And I know when I ordered that kit, when I contacted my importer, he had to contact Sakai and get like a confirmed purchase with him directly. And I want to say it was 6 to 8 months I had to wait for it.
Wow.
For release.
Wow.
Well, it was a long time.
Wow.
Like when Toshi would get the, I know he told, like when I asked Toshi, because he had a lot of the leftover Sakai resin kits and stuff like that, he actually dealt with Sakai directly. Which, I mean, I always heard that was really one of the only ways you could get those limited kits that were like the Godzilla Dream series from Hobby, or was it in Hobby Japan that was published, right?
Yeah.
Or Hobby?
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Hobby Japan.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, if you have the 2 volumes of the books are
they're sweet. They're amazing.
Yeah, I have his first book. He's really worried about people recasting his kits, so you basically have to buy directly from him.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you look at like the early stuff he did in the 80s and 90s, like the Kyoto kits, and comparing that to like the newer resin casts that he's done, you see him as an artist. He just gets better. You can see his skill level increasing as you go throughout the years and look at his stuff.
Oh, absolutely. He's definitely improving on his own sculpts, which is pretty amazing. But speaking of Sakai, in the second book, the Godzilla Dream Quest Hobby Japan book,
The Evolution.
Evolution. There is a section in the back of these little figures that he never actually got produced of the appearances, like, you know, Godzilla 64 leaning against the castle, and I don't know, just some really sweet Godzilla dioramas. Whatever happened to those? Are we ever going to see those, or what? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about in the book. In fact, hang on a second.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
This is the old school as it gets. This big twist, the Kyoto big twist that I did.
Oh, yeah,
And,
yeah.
and you had to glue in every single tooth on the top row, and on the back there was no place for the fins to. There was no, it was smooth. It was just skin, and you had to figure out where they went.
Oh my God, I never built that guy, and now I'm glad I didn't.
It's a nightmare.
Wow.
Just because, like you said, he evolved so much.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm actually trying to find that particular one you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, when I first got that book, I'm like, oh, when are these coming out? And then I'm like, wait a minute, they were sculpted like years ago. I'm like, oh, did I miss them or did they not?
Here we go.
Those, yeah. I mean, look at that. I mean,
yeah.
How much would you love to have those?
I think we all would love to have. I mean, it's
Yes.
I mean, look at that 62. It's sweet. I mean,
Oh.
they're just sweet.
awesome, right?
Damn.
Both look damn right awesome.
Damn.
And there's the that's the one you guys were talking about before, right?
No, it's a 62 Fighting Mothra.
Oh, the still. Oh, yeah, still. Okay, it was the still picture, right?
Yep.
Yeah, just to circle back what you guys were saying, there's so many obscure kits out there that are one-offs that you'll see an image of somewhere, but
that one.
personally
Oh man, look at that. Yeah, that's great.
That is one. That's one I want really badly right there.
Wow.
Yeah,
The 66.
appearance of 66, and it has a tail that's like separate, so you can take him out of the cave.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the best appearances, I think. I love that appearance.
Yep.
I think Sea Monster is an underrated film. I love that film.
Oh, I love it. It's incredible. I personally just it's great, like great adventure type story. I mean, just really a lot of fun. Yes, it kicks ass. It kicks ass. I know. It rocks. Oh,
You know that the Godzilla vs. Sea Monster was supposed to be King Kong and not Godzilla.
Yep.
That's why he's so smitten with Kumi Mizuno, and he sort of saves her. I mean, it's supposed to be Kong, and I'm glad it wasn't actually, because the Kong suit. Although no, don't get me wrong, I love both Kongs, but damn, those suits are pretty bad. Like Keith, when he comes in and I'm watching those movies, he's like, "How can you even watch this?" He can't get past the fact that those suits are like horrendous, and they are. But it's nostalgic and it's fun, and yeah, I mean, right. He's just like,
Love it.
the only way I can watch a Godzilla movie with Keith is if Mothra's in it.
Well, Mothra is in it, right?
If Mothra is in the movie, I can watch it. Except Destroy All Monsters, I tried that. Mothra's not in it enough, and he's like, this movie's boring as hell. I'm like, oh. Ooh. Divorce Papers.
David, you said that Kong was there originally, or
Yes.
that was the original plan. Was Mothra was originally in it too, right? Like from the beginning, right?
That I don't know. I don't know that for a fact, but I know that it was supposed to be a vehicle for King Kong before they decided on King Kong Escapes, which actually came to be because that was a sort of spin on the Japanese Kong, Rankin Bass Kong cartoon.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with the 62 Kong on Faroe Island. It's completely different. It's Mondo Island, Doctor Who, the whole thing. So, yeah.
And I consult with a small company called YMSF in Japan, and they do small, like 6-inch vinyl figures, and I paint some stuff for them. And they wanted to do Mechanicon, and another company did one that's in scale. But yeah, it's Rankin Bass or Hanna-Barbera to this day owns the rights to Mechanicon. Toho doesn't have it. That's why you don't see any of that stuff anymore.
Well, and it's interesting because if you guys remember in the 1990s when they were talking about doing a remake of King Kong vs. Godzilla, and then there was a story about they wanted to have Mechanicon fight Godzilla, and they were going to have like a storyline where people would be injected into Godzilla to kind of like do mess them up inside while Mechanicon was fighting them. I mean, this is in reference books and stuff. they found out that they couldn't even get the rights to use Mechanicon apparently because I mean King Kong is a tough cookie. Any likeness of him really.
That's why we don't see a lot of Kong figures, and that's why we don't see a lot of Frankenstein figures, because that estate, the Karloff estate, is so, you know, I mean, and you know, rightly so. I mean, that's their property.
Hey, David?
Yeah.
We inquired this year with YMSF to do Frankenstein. The problem is the actor is still alive, and in Japan, he has the rights to his face.
Really?
Yeah. In Japan, it's automatic. The gargantuas are not a problem, but Frankenstein, because you see enough of his face, we can't do it unless. And apparently, he's very reclusive now, and we couldn't find him.
Wow.
To track him down to get his likeness rights.
I think I heard that. So it would be you wouldn't be able to call it Frankenstein. You could probably call it Atomic Giant Boy or something, right?
You know, Frankenstein, I think the name become public domain.
Really?
I don't think that's the problem. It's his likeness that's the problem.
The problem is Universal, the thing about it is Universal, and this is the reason that the Hammer Frankensteins looked the way they did. Universal has, they have some kind of a copyright on the flat-headed, like that look for Frankenstein. But if you did something like Robert De Niro in the '94 film or anything like that, like you can do your own thing. But I think the Toho Frankenstein, because it does kind of have the flat head, that might be a little too close to it. I mean, or it could be from what Steve said about the actor. I think his name Koji Furuhata. I think his name was.
I can't remember, but we had a prototype ready to go, pretty far along.
Wow.
And,
I want a Frankenstein so bad. That's like on my bucket list. I want to.
I wouldn't be surprised if it got made, and that's about as much as I can say about that.
Wow.
But yeah, it's an issue, and it wasn't with Universal, and that was the opposite with Kong. So you remember, there's a little YMSF Kong that YMSF themselves didn't actually put out, and that's because at the time, that was around the time the Peter Jackson film was coming, and what happened was we approached Toho, and they're like, we don't have the rights to it. Universal owns Kong, and so the YMSF guys contacted Universal, and they're like, we don't own the rights to that. That's Toho's. So it's like this gray zone where no one owns it, or no one will claim it.
But there's also,
and that has been problematic for Kong.
if it's not an actor's face, there's ways around it. Like, for example, that small company called Apes that put out those two figures, those vinyl figures of the 62 and the 67 Kong. They were called Apes, they weren't called Kong. So that's another way around it, too. And that's why I said, you call it Giant Atomic, Boy instead of Frankenstein if it was the name that was a problem. So anyway.
The funny thing is, David, do you have this one, the Marmot?
I don't. I want it. I actually have the M1. The M1.
Because if you look on the bottom of the foot, it says Frankenstein. It's very hard to see, but the Japanese katakana for Frankenstein is on the foot.
Interesting. Wow.
Just food for thought.
Frankenstein.
Well, I'd like to say real quick, thank you everyone for inviting me. This was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
Well,
man, thanks for sharing so much with us. I know I learned a lot.
Well, this is all because John emailed me yesterday about modeling tips. I'm like, I can't type all this information. Let's just talk. And then we said, well, maybe Rich wants to get involved, and he's building kids, and then Steve has information I don't have, and so we kind of opened it up to you guys. So yeah, thanks so much for listening, and I hope what I said was helpful. And if you take a little piece of it, then I'm happy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys.
I'll go back and watch it again for sure, because I got 2 kits that I want to do for myself that I'm gonna have some questions for both of you. So absolutely.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna walk the dogs, and I'm gonna work on my 66 kit when I'm done.
All right.
Thank you guys. We should do this again.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, Burley, Dutch, and Steve, it's great meeting you guys. First time.
David, here.
We'll do it again.
Ditto.
Pleasure talking.
All right. As we wrap this up, I will say there will be another Fresh Vinyl Live. We will be discussing the 25 centimeter X Plus King Ghidorah.
Ooh.
So that will be at another date and time we have not set yet, but that's going to be the next Fresh Vinyl Live.
Rich, before we go,
conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll throw all the cards on the table. So that will be next time.
Okay, next time we're going to discuss also the Toho decision to do Godzilla. I don't think we ever talked about that too, right? I know David's
Yeah,
like
the 2016.
So we should also say that the discussion about King Ghidorah is probably not a child-friendly discussion because there's going to be a lot of emotions going on with that one, right? Am I right?
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I mean, I can barely contain myself for this discussion, so I can't imagine what's going to happen with the other discussion. So anyway, just putting it out there.
It's all good.
So that's
Right.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right, good night, folks.
Take it easy, guys. Thanks for having us.
Anytime.
See you guys.
Our pleasure.
Remember, buy vinyl, fresh vinyl. Bam.